Did you know that the word trauma comes from the Greek for wound? And what is the German word for dream? Traum. Wounds can create monsters.
In the 11th book of his early psychoanalytic publications, Freud defines a trauma as any psychological event which abruptly overwhelms the ego's capacity to provide a minimal sense of safety and integrative intactness, resulting in overwhelming anxiety or helplessness. Every experience which produces the painful effect of fear, anxiety, shame, or of psychic pain may act as a trauma.
Donald Duck, you are the greatest singer in the world.
In the second half of the 20th century, the American society had to deal with several different traumatic situations. Cinema not only described those situations, but showed us their serious consequences. But first things first. Several new Hollywood directors have focused on the huge impact the Vietnam conflict had had on the American society. War caused a massive wave of mistrust towards United States institutions, and the matter of post-traumatic stress syndrome was brought to the public attention. Scorsese, in Taxi Driver, reuses noir to represent a better and alienated character. Still with De Niro, Michael Cimino's The Deer Hunter, in which Nick, played by Christopher Walken, doesn't recognize his friend Mike anymore after several years fighting in the army.
The mountains, you remember all that?
And again, Colonel Kurtz in Apocalypse Now, Bob Hyde from Coming Home, Mike Nicholson from The Visitors, Johnny Voden from Rolling Thunder. Disapproval of the American military intervention in Vietnam was conveyed through revisited genres such as musical, Hair by Mills Foreman, Western, Blue Soldier by Ralph Nelson, or science fiction, Planet of the Apes by Franklin Schaffner. Scorsese, while interviewed by critic Roger Ebert, said, "You can't make movies anymore in which the whole country seems to make sense. After Vietnam, after Watergate, it's not just a temporary thing, it's a permanent thing the country's going through." This leads us to our second point.
In all the decisions I have made in my public life, I have always tried to do what was best for the nation.
Watergate, one of the major scandals of American history, not only caused the first and last case of a USA president's demissions, but also a collapse of American society's trust in government. If All the President's Men by Alan J. Pakula dealt with the work behind the Washington Post's inquiry, different American New Wave movies have showed Watergate's consequences. Before All the President's Men, Pakula directed The Parallax View, starring Warren Beatty, a movie which tells us about a journalist discovering the conspiracy behind a senator's death. In 3 Days of the Condor, an agent, played by Robert Redford, finds out about a plot from within CIA, which leads him to trust no one but himself. Let's also think about Chinatown or Serpico, two stories of corruption at the opposite ends of America, Los Angeles and New York. And also Blowout by Brian De Palma, where a sound engineer manages to find out about the murder of a governor, recording it by accident. In Francis Ford Coppola's The Conversation, spiritual father of Blowout, a private investigator obsessed by privacy ends up becoming crazy because of his fear of being observed. In its last iconic shot, we watch the scene from a security camera point of view, which moves on Gene Hackman's character, gone crazy at this point.
I can't get it off my mind, Allison. It's obsessing me.
Conspiracy paranoia didn't spare anything or anyone, even characterizing important moments of American history such as the moon landing or President Kennedy's murder.
So how is it possible for Oswald to have fired from two angles at once? It doesn't make sense.
Ozzy.
What is also true is that American society disorientation was not caused just by Watergate scandal, but was also a consequence of the countless deaths of important American political leaders in the 60s. It is curious to find movies like Jackie or Selma in the cinemas nowadays, because in the years immediately following the tragic deaths of Malcolm X, the Kennedy brothers, Martin Luther King or Fred Hampton, no movie displayed the lives of these great leaders who affected massively the United States in the 60s. Vietnam War and Watergate had a direct and clear influence on the cinematographic world, becoming immediately actual movie subjects. But in my opinion, even the loss of American great leaders influenced film industry, but this time indirectly, through the shift in how Americans perceived their own country. These traumatic events, as a whole, contributed to the rise of some of the genres of the Hollywood in the 70s: road movie, gangster movie, and horror movie. Let's see how. Road movies often bring out topics such as the search of the self, the escape from society, and the rediscovery of American wilderness. We might think that what led the American man to seek a fresh start in his own origins, traveling backwards through America, was the disorientation caused by these traumas and the loss of all their points of reference. The ultimate example is Easy Rider, but we can also think about The Rain People, Vanishing Point, The Getaway, Badlands, 5 Easy Pieces, and a lot more. Gangster movie finds its own roots in the same research of firm points of reference. Bonnie and Clyde, John Civello, Don Vito Corleone, and John Dillinger become new leaders of the American society, negative versions of those charismatic figures now lost, who fought for what was right. But America is now too cynic and dangerous to pursue noble motives.
Leave the gun. Take the cannoli.
Hello? Hello?
Lastly, it is interesting to note how even successful American New Wave directors started to work on horror movies. What got an educated audience closer to this genre was the need to reflect on the society of the time, due to the heavy and senseless violence of those years. Some examples are Rosemary's Baby, The Exorcist, or The Omen. Splatter films have been the ones who managed to convey through images this anxiety and decay. Blood became a typical visual element, as we can notice in movies like The Last House on the Left, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Carrie, The Evil Dead, or Halloween. Assimilating European modern cinema's influences, the American New Wave's movies couldn't help but portray the great traumas of the 60s, making the American modern cinema one of the most interesting Hollywood season of all time.
Forget it, Jake. It's Chinatown.